Okay, let's take a deep dive today into some truly incredible moments captured in Luke chapter 9.
Oh, absolutely. Luke 9 is, it's really dense, isn't it?
It really is. We're going to unpack quite a bit, sending out followers with some surprising instructions feeding thousands.
Against all odds, yeah. And those profound revelations about identity, those dramatic spiritual encounters.
And some really challenging conversations about what commitment actually looks like. It covers so much ground.
It feels like a real turning point in Luke's narrative, bringing together power, teaching, and these major shifts. It changes how you see Jesus and, well, what following him involves.
Definitely a pivot point. And it kicks off right away, doesn't it? Jesus calls the 12 together.
Yeah, and it's not just a meeting. He immediately equips them
That's right. The text says he gave them power and authority, specifically.
to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And their mission, their marching orders were crystal clear. Preach the kingdom of God and heal the sick.
So huge power, huge authority, massive mission. But then the instructions about how they should actually do it. That's where it gets, well, interesting.
And maybe a little uncomfortable, yeah. He tells them, take nothing.
Literally nothing. No staff, no bag, no bread, no money.
Not even an extra tunic. It's quite something.
So on one hand, supernatural power. On the other, they're stripped bare of normal resources.
Exactly. And that points to a core idea here, doesn't it? Radical reliance. Jesus gives the divine authority, but demands complete dependence on the mission itself and whatever provision comes through it, not your own stuff.
That just goes against every instinct, to prepare, to stockpile.
Right. And the instruction about lodging reinforces it, too.
Oh, yeah. Whatever house you enter, stay there. No looking for the best deal or the comfiest bed.
It's about focus, isn't it? Not getting sidetracked by comfort or status. And if a town rejects them,
Shake the dust off your feet. A symbolic break, a testimony against them.
clear and final. And the result?
Well, the text says they did it. They went village to village, preaching and healing everywhere. It actually worked, this stripped-down approach.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? For
Right.
anyone listening. When you feel called to something, what does this combination of authority and lack of resources suggest about where true capability comes from?
It's a powerful question. Now, all this activity, preaching, healing,
Yeah.
it doesn't go unnoticed.
No. Word gets around. Pretty soon, it reaches Herod the Tetrarch. The political power starts paying attention.
And the report says Herod was perplexed, totally confused.
Because the rumors were just all over the place, right? Some thought John the Baptist was back from the dead.
Others thought Elijah had shown up, or maybe one of the old prophets.
And Herod's reaction is specific and kind of chilling. He actually says, I beheaded John.
He confirms it himself.
Yeah. And then asks, who then is this I hear such things about? He's clearly unnerved. He even tries to see Jesus later on.
It shows the ripple effect, doesn't it? The impact and the mystery surrounding Jesus reached even the corridors of power, causing this unease and curiosity.
Definitely. Okay, so after the 12 return from their mission, they report back.
And Jesus takes them aside, withdrawing with them to Bethsaida, probably looking for some downtime after all that.
You'd think. But the crowds follow him. Again.
Of course they do, and even though he wanted a retreat, his compassion just takes over.
Yep. He welcomes them, talks about the kingdom, heals those who need it. He just engages with them.
But as the day goes on, there's a practical problem brewing. Huge crowd, 5,000 men plus others, remote place.
And they're hungry. The disciples see this and make, well, the logical suggestion.
Seems sensible. Send them away so they can find food and lodging nearby.
Pure pragmatism.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But Jesus' response just flips everything.
You give them something to eat.
Imagine hearing that. Their reaction is immediate.
We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. They see the massive need versus the tiny resource.
Yeah.
Scarcity thinking, right?
Totally. And this is the heart of it, that tension. Perceived lack versus what happens through obedience. Because Jesus takes that tiny offering.
5 loaves, 2 fish, looks up to heaven, gives thanks, bricks it.
And gives it to the disciples to hand out.
The result is just astounding. It says, they all ate and were satisfied.
Every single one.
And the detail that always gets me, 12 basketfuls of leftovers. Not just enough, but overflowing abundance.
That command, you give them something to eat, followed by that outcome. It forces you to look at how divine provision might work through your own limited means when you act on his word.
So after this huge public display, you'd think maybe things settle down. But no.
No, Jesus immediately shifts gears. He's praying privately with the disciples, and he starts asking these deep questions about identity.
Right. First, the general question, who do the crowd say I am?
And they repeat the rumors we just heard Herod was grappling with. John the Baptist, Elijah, an old prophet.
Then he turns it directly onto them, the inner circle. But what about you? Who do you say I am?
That's the core question, isn't it? And Peter steps up.
The Christ of God, the Messiah. It's a huge moment of confession.
Foundational. But Jesus' reaction is, again, a bit surprising. He warns them strictly not to tell anyone.
And then immediately after this high point of revelation, he drops this bombshell prediction.
Yeah, really unsettling news. The Son of Man must suffer many things.
Be rejected by the religious leaders, elders, chief priests, teachers of the law.
Be killed, and on the third day be raised to life.
It's such a jarring contrast. The glorious Messiah, the Christ of God, must suffer and die.
And right after delivering that heavy news, he broadens the audience. He speaks to everyone.
Laying out the terms, the non-negotiables for following him, those famous lines.
Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves.
And take up their cross daily and follow me.
That daily part is crucial, isn't it? It's not a one-off. It's an ongoing posture of self-denial, embracing the cost.
And then the paradox. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it.
It flips our whole survival instinct upside down.
Followed by that piercing question. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self?
Wow. This whole section just hammers home the link between who Jesus is, the necessity of his suffering, and the very real daily cost of discipleship. It challenges everything about self-preservation and what we value.
True gain isn't worldly accumulation, it's allegiance to him, even if it costs you everything.
Okay, so about 8 days after that incredibly intense conversation, we get another extraordinary event.
The Transfiguration. Jesus takes Peter, John, and James, the inner circle of a mountain, to pray.
And while he's praying, his appearance just transforms. His face changes, his clothes become dazzling bright, like lightning, a glimpse of pure glory.
And he's not alone up there. 2 other figures appear.
In glorious splendor with him, Moses and Elijah.
Which is hugely significant, right? Moses representing the law, Elijah, the prophets.
The absolute pillars of Jewish faith and history.
Yeah.
And the text tells us what they were talking about.
Which is amazing in itself. They're discussing his departure. The Greek word is actually exodus.
His exodus, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem.
Wait, so standing there in glory, they're talking about his impending death in Jerusalem.
Exactly. It directly connects the glory they're witnessing to the suffering and death he just predicted. The glory and the cross are intertwined.
Meanwhile, the disciples.
They're described as very sleepy, classic. But they do wake up enough to see the glory and the 2 figures with Jesus.
And Peter, ever the impulsive one, as Moses and Elijah are leaving, he jumps in.
Master, it's good for us to be here. Let's put up 3 shelters.
One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah, trying to contain the moment, maybe.
Or maybe putting them on the same level. But the text points out he did not know what he was saying.
And just then, a cloud appears, envelops them. A clear sign of God's presence, the Shekinah glory.
And the disciples are terrified as they enter this cloud.
Then the voice from the cloud, unmistakably God.
This is my son whom I have chosen. Listen to him.
Wow. That's the ultimate stamp of approval. It sets Jesus apart above even Moses and Elijah. Listen to him.
The divine affirmation couldn't be clearer. And right after the voice, the cloud lifts, and Jesus is alone again. The vision is over.
And the disciples, they kept it quiet. They didn't tell anyone at that time what they'd seen.
The insight there is just profound. Divine validation, supreme authority focused on Jesus, and that command, listen to him, shifts everything. It's not just about the spectacle, it's about prioritizing his words.
So they come down the mountain the very next day, back to reality.
And reality hits hard. A large crowd meets them, and a man cries out, desperate.
Pleading for his only child, describing horrific symptoms. A spirit seizes the boy.
Screaming, convulsions, foaming at the mouth. The father says it's destroying him. A picture of absolute torment.
And then the painful admission from the father. He begged Jesus' disciples to drive the spirit out.
But they could not.
Ooh, that's a stark contrast to the power they were given back at the start of the chapter.
It really is. And Jesus' reaction is sharp, isn't it? He expresses this frustration.
Oh, unbelieving and perverse generation. How long shall I stay with you and put up with you?
You feel the weight of that.
Hey.
While maybe aimed broadly, the disciples' failure seems part of that picture. It suggests belief, or the lack of it, is a factor.
But then Jesus acts immediately, tells the father, bring your son here.
And even as the boy is coming, the demon throws him down again in a violent convulsion. It's not giving up easily.
But Jesus just rebukes the evil spirit, heals the boy completely, and gives him back to his father.
The power is undeniable, instantaneous. It highlights the difference maybe between derived authority, which can be hindered, and Jesus' inherent sovereign power.
The crowd is just amazed at the greatness of God, a moment of awe.
But right on the heels of that, while everyone is still marveling, Jesus pulls his disciples aside again.
And says something completely jarring, almost out of sync with the mood.
Listen carefully.
Ugh.
The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men.
Again, like a cold dose of reality right after the mountaintop glory and this powerful healing.
And look at the disciples' reaction, even after seeing everything, the transfiguration, the healing.
They did not understand what this meant. It was hidden from them, and they were afraid to ask him about it.
They just cannot seem to reconcile the powerful Messiah with this message of suffering and betrayal he keeps repeating.
It really underscores how hard it was for them to grasp his true mission, the path through the cross.
And it foreshadows their struggles later on, but what happens next is almost unbelievable.
Right. In the middle of all this glory, power, warnings of betrayal, what are the disciples focused on?
An argument breaks out among them about which one of them was the greatest.
Talk about missing the point. Spectacularly. After hearing about betrayal and suffering, they're ranking themselves.
Jesus, knowing their thoughts, doesn't rebuke them directly with words at first. He does something visual.
He takes a little child, has him stand right beside him.
A living object lesson. He says welcoming this child in his name is welcoming him, and welcoming him welcomes God who sent him.
And then the punchline, the complete reversal of worldly status.
For it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest.
Wow. That just turns everything upside down. Power, status, achievement, none of that matters in his kingdom.
The insight is radical. True greatness is found in humility, in how you value and care for the vulnerable, the ones society might see as insignificant. A total countercultural definition.
So powerful. Okay, next we see the disciples grappling with boundaries again.
Yeah, another example of their slightly exclusive mindset, perhaps. John pipes up.
He reports, Master, we saw someone driving out demons in your name and we tried to stop him.
And the reason?
Yeah.
Because he is not one of us.
He wasn't part of their specific group. Even though he was effectively using Jesus' authority against evil, their instinct was exclusion.
But Jesus' response is, again, surprising and broadening.
Do not stop him, Jesus says, for whoever is not against you is for you.
That challenges their us versus them thinking, doesn't it? It suggests kingdom work, effective work, can happen outside the official inner circle. Shared purpose matters more than just belonging to the right group.
It widens the perspective considerably, and then the chapter signals another major shift, a turning point.
Yes, the language is really specific here. As the time approached for him to be taken up, referencing his ascension, but encompassing the whole path through death and resurrection.
Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem.
That word resolutely is key. This isn't the aimless wandering anymore. It's a determined, focused journey towards his destiny, towards the cross.
He sets messengers ahead to prepare the way in a Samaritan village.
But they hit a snag. Immediate rejection.
The Samaritans there did not welcome him. Why? Because he was heading for Jerusalem.
That old, deep-seated animosity between Jews and Samaritans, centered on the right place to worship, flares up.
And this rejection provokes a really intense reaction from James and John.
Oh yeah, the sons of thunder. They asked Jesus, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them?
Wow. That's extreme. An eye for an eye, Old Testament style, maybe.
Seems like it. But Jesus immediately turns and rebukes them, not the Samaritans, but his own disciples for that vengeful impulse.
He models a completely different response to hostility and rejection.
So this moment marks that determined step towards Jerusalem, shows the immediate opposition, and corrects a wrong reaction within his own team. They still have a lot to learn.
So true. And the chapter wraps up with these incredibly stark encounters on the road.
Yeah, 3 brief conversations that just lay bare the cost of following him. No sugarcoating here.
First, a man eagerly volunteers, I will follow you wherever you go. Sounds great, right?
It's like the perfect recruit. But Jesus' reply cuts right through any romantic notions.
Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head.
Oof. The insight. Following him might mean total instability. Homelessness, lack of basic security, not exactly a comfortable prospect.
Then Jesus initiates the call to someone else. Follow me.
And the man's request seems reasonable, culturally vital even. Lord, first let me go and bury my father.
A primary family duty. But Jesus' response is stunningly abrupt.
Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God.
The urgency of the kingdom mission overrides even the most sacred traditional obligations. It demands priority.
It's really challenging. And the third encounter, another volunteer.
I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Again, seems polite, reasonable.
But Jesus uses this farming image. No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God.
No looking back. The insight is about undivided commitment. Single-minded focus. Discipleship demands everything, without reservation or backward glances to old comforts or ties.
These three encounters together just paint this incredibly demanding picture. Sacrifice, urgency, total focus. They force you, the listener, to really examine your own priorities and level of commitment.
Absolutely. Wow, Luke 9, it really does pack so much in. Empowering followers, miraculous provision, these deep identity questions, glimpses of divine glory.
Confrontations with evil, those tough teachings on humility, and the real cost of discipleship.
And then that resolute turn towards Jerusalem, towards the cross. It's just layer upon layer. Power, revelation, but also so much challenge and, frankly, misunderstanding, even from the inner circle.
It gives you this incredibly rich, complex picture of Jesus, the surprising upside-down nature of his kingdom, and the stark countercultural demands of actually following him.
So as you think back over all these events we've touched on, the authority and the required reliance, the unexpected ways God's power works, Jesus' definition of greatness versus the world's, the struggle to embrace suffering alongside glory, and those really demanding calls to follow, maybe reflect on this. Which part of this deep dive into Luke 9 most directly challenges your own current understanding of power or identity, or what commitment truly requires in your own life and faith?